Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Young Justice Outsiders, Episode 3. So, last time we left off, we had one of the princes being basically kidnapped, thanks to Count Vertigo and his, I guess you'd call them, team. He's working with this one doctor, technically two doctors, or is one a professor? Either way, working with them. Although they don't seem as evil as Vertigo is. But they are also all working for someone else entirely. Vertigo's not in charge because he called someone else, and it seems to be someone from the royal family. And we were already, I was talking about last time how I was thinking the brother would be a little too, or no, not the brother, the uncle would be a little too obvious, because the uncle kind of seems like this scary, intense dude. But also the brother seems a little obvious as well. And I gave the theory that maybe like the parents could have faked their death, or maybe there's someone else. I don't think it's Tara, or Tara is probably how they pronounce it here. I don't think it's her. That just wouldn't make sense to me. I mean, it could be the brother, but I really don't think it's the uncle. That would just be really, way too obvious in my eyes. Either way, we also had our team come, get into things with all of this. And yeah, it's just, things are starting to go down for sure. We had these goons who were working for Vertigo and all, burying these teens who had been experimented on and being attempted to be turned into basically mutants. They were trying to give them powers and all. But they were all dying, so these goons were burying their corpses, but one girl just suddenly came back to life. And so Artemis helped her escape, and this girl seemed to have like some kind of energy shield powers, I believe it was. It's actually been a couple weeks, so bear with me. But yeah, it's definitely getting interesting now. It's definitely getting interesting. We haven't had too much continuation on the entire split between the Justice League and everything. It was kind of talked about in the second episode, but not really focused on. So I do hope we go more into that in future episodes. Now, one thing I do know is that apparently there's going to be more episodes coming in June. There's already a bunch of episodes released, and I guess that there's more episodes to this season coming in June. I think it's what is going on. Like, there was a mid-season break, basically. That kind of deal going on. So, I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't think we're going to end up going all the way through in one go. And heck, I mean, you never know. Right now, this season's doing amazingly, but it could still start to go back towards the way of Season 2, which at that point would probably start to wane my interest. And I really don't want to drop this, but if it does start to go there, my interest in this, in continuing, will probably go below 0. Or, not below 0, but below 10%. The limit for us, basically. But based on what we've seen with the first 2 episodes, I do not think that's going to happen yet. Right now, they seem to be doing pretty damn well. We are focusing on a specific group at the moment, though. And I mean, I'm fine with doing so. We have Superboy, we have Nightwing, we have Black Lightning, and Artemis. And they're a great group. I like all of them. But we are kind of ignoring everyone else. Now, this season is named after who I presume this group is. They haven't, like, used the name themselves, but I presume that they're supposed to be the outsiders. They're working outside the jurisdiction of the Justice League, the Young Justice team, everyone else. They're just doing their own thing, their own secret missions that no one else knows about. So, I have to presume that that's what's going on here. But again, it hasn't said for sure, so I don't know for sure. But that is at least my theory. But yeah, things are definitely starting to go down. At the very end of last episode, I believe, is when the one doctor came in, the one who was helping the younger prince, and he's currently locked away in this tank. But she seemed to be comforting him and reassuring him, so I don't think she's bad. And the professor, the other dude who had brought him down there in the first place, he does definitely not seem bad. He actually seems really, really thrown off by a lot of this. So I don't think those two are actually bad guys. I think they're I think they're working for Vertigo and whoever the true leader is, because they they feel this is good, or they've been convinced it's good, but they're still not sure about all of what's going on, which I'm good with. So I'm very excited to see where this goes, though. I am very excited and interested to see where they take this. So we're going to get started. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you at the reaction. Okay, and we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So this was a really intense episode. Like, a lot happened, but at the same time, it was pretty simple in the way it was executed. It's just, like, it was really intense at points. Like, the part where the Plasmith, or I guess Otto is his name, the part where, when he was still being controlled and he grabbed, the girl's face with that, like, magma plasma, like, body and everything, burning her flesh and, like, squeezing it. Oh my gosh, that was frightening. Like, legitimately frightening to watch. Because this is a kid. She's like a teenager, like what, 15 years old? Seeing this young girl, like, getting brutally murdered like that. And granted, she has immortality, apparently, but still, it's like that's still a very frightening scene. Because it's like I mean, we kind of already knew that she kind of had this ability, but I was thinking, like, the coming back from the dead initially was like, maybe that's how her power activated. Maybe she wasn't actually dead, but in some kind of death-like state. I didn't know she actually literally came back from the dead. So yeah, that's really fascinating to me. Because it's like this extremely powerful healing factor. We've seen healing factors in a lot of different characters in comic books. It's actually very common. Spider-Man has a healing factor. Wolverine has a healing factor. A lot of these really super-powered characters do. So to see it done in this kind of, like, this much of a degree, to where I believe that she legitimately did die there, but that her healing factor is so strong that it can bring at least her back from death. Now she said, like, no die, like, and everything, like, she can't die, but come on, like, come on. With what happened to her, her brain would have been fried. That would have killed her. But, like, I guess her healing factor is just so strong and so quick that it heals her it heals her enough before she can truly fully die, so that she is able to survive it overall. But that she is obviously completely unconscious and everything for a time. But we also see that she apparently does have the ability to heal others as well. At least she alluded to that. However, she cannot bring someone else back from the dead. That kind of thing only works for her. She can heal others, though, if they are just injured or whatnot. So she has a really fascinating power set, because even on top of just the healing factor, she also can create these plasma-like force fields. Um, she has almost like a white mage kind of power set. Like the white mage kind of archetype with like fantasy RPG and stuff, especially with stuff like D&D, where it's like, oh, you're the healer and the defensive specialist. You're there as basically just as pure support. She seems like that kind of character, a pure support character. She's defensive. She's healing, but she's not an aggressive attack or anything. She doesn't have any, at least from what we can tell so far, doesn't have any offensive powers. Unless she can somehow, like, launch her shields at people, which is possible, but we don't know that yet. So having this kind of character is always cool because, admittedly, because I've always liked these kind of characters. I mean, even in my D&D group, I am a cleric. And yes, I'll do some action myself. I'll fight because clerics do have that ability. But I do tend to lead mostly a healer support role. A lot of the times when someone is injured, I'll heal them. I give them money if they need it. I've shared my healing potions and other items with people. That is how I tend to play. And granted, I've only been in one campaign for D&D so far. But the point still stands. That's the kind of character I like to be because, admittedly, I just like to be that kind of person, too. I like to be able to be there for people, even if I don't know how, and even if I'm not good at it. But either way, we also see, now that we've gotten that, I wanted to talk about that first, but let's talk about Brion and that entire situation. So we find out the Your Highness that Count Vertigo was referring to was the uncle. And I don't like that. As I was saying in my pre-thoughts, I felt that that would be too obvious. Because the uncle was immediately suspicious the first time you see him. He is just immediately suspicious and immediately, like, obvious evil. It was too obvious. It was too suspicious. I feel like having it actually be him in the end is very generic. It's definitely the worst thing that the show, that this season at least, has done so far. Because it just feels like there wasn't a lot of thought put into that. Because this has been the major story with this season so far. Like, I mean, outside of just the metahuman trafficking overarching plot, this has been the direct current story. The entire Markovberg royal family situation. And I'm thinking like, okay, it could be the brother and all, but I don't know, and maybe there could have been like a faked death, like the parents were really alive, like they were maybe metahuman or something. But at the same time, it's just like, the uncle was just way too obvious. And heck, there could have even been some other member of the royal family that they didn't even introduce yet, maybe. It's just like the uncle was just too obvious. Now, I know that this isn't probably going to be the big ongoing plot too much longer. They're probably going to move on from this and move on to other stuff related to the metahuman trafficking and other stuff that's going to be used for this purpose. This was just kind of the way to open the season, the first arc, you could say. But still, having the villain reveal be so freaking obvious and so freaking easy to see coming is never a good thing for any series. Big example, Naruto. Naruto and Naruto Shippuden both have a lot of good stuff to them. They do. They're not the best anime, but they have a lot of good stuff to them that I really do appreciate and like. But they also made one of the biggest mistakes, specifically with Shippuden. In Shippuden, there was this character introduced who was very quickly a fan favorite named Toby. Toby was kind of childish and silly, very immature and goofy. He was introduced as a partner to the other Akatsuki member, Deidara. But it was revealed after a little bit that Toby was actually not a goofball. that he was actually a master manipulator and was faking his more lighthearted personality. And so people had started to wonder who he was, and almost instantly, the theory, the big popular theory became that he was Obito, the former partner of Kakashi when he was a student, who had died. And the big reason for the theory was the name, because Obi is very close to, or that Toby is very close to Obito. In fact, there's really only one letter away from it. And it's just like, no, that's too obvious. And before it was revealed, that was my mindset. It's too obvious. It would make too much sense. It would be too logical. That there's no way that Kishimoto would make it so obvious that people get it almost right away. It's got to be someone else. Got to be. And my first theory was Madara Uchiha. But eventually, either way, it was revealed that it was Obito, and it felt like a complete letdown. And it was actually one of the things that made me lose interest in the series, because it was so obvious. And instead of trying to be clever and make it be someone else and do something different, Kishimoto's just like, no, you guys were right from the beginning. Toby's always been Obito. It's like, it doesn't work, because if the audience can see something coming a mile away, it's like it loses all sense of intrigue. And here's the thing. I've said before that predictability isn't always a bad thing, and I stand by that. But this is a kind of situation where it needs to be a notable thing. You can't be too predictable when you're trying to hide the identity of someone, when you're trying to be secretive about that. When Kishimoto was trying to hide the identity of Toby, but everybody was guessing Obito, and then he actually makes it end up being Obito, it's like, you're... And it's the same thing here. It's so super obvious that it would be him. That it would be the uncle here. And I mean, I didn't put together the entire thing about the name being an anagram, but even so, that's just stupid. I mean, that would be an even bigger reason why it shouldn't be him. It would be better maybe if it was a setup to make it believe that it was him, and then have it be the older brother or someone else instead. That would have been much better. But they just went too much of the obvious route. And I feel it just hurt the overall storyline they were going with there. Now, meanwhile, Brion had been wanting to become a metahuman. He's been wanting to have his metahuman capabilities unlocked in order to help protect his home. So it does manage to happen. The doctor does help him. I cannot think of her name. But she does help him. Granted, he freaks out right after, but eventually he does seem to see what happened. And yeah, I mean, he's got his powers now. He apparently can turn into this magma monster, very similar to Plasmus, but not completely. His powers also seem to get more powerful when he gets out of control, which is probably not a good thing. We see him fight with his uncle, who has this Colossus-like power. It's very much like Colossus from the X-Men. Except I think it's supposed to be stone instead of steel. It's not entirely clear. But either way, so the uncle ends up getting arrested. And Brion, his brother, tells him that he has to leave. That due to the very, very testy climate at the moment with metahumans, that he can't stay there. But he asks Superboy, please keep an eye on him. Please watch over him. You could tell the older brother really does care about Brion. You can really tell that. But he also has to look out for his country at the same time, as the future king. So it's like, it's a really tough decision. And he's not arresting Brion. He's not having him executed or doing anything bad. He's just telling him, you can't be here. You have to go. You have to be safe. He's honestly trying to protect him. And that's good. I like that. And honestly, that was a very smart move on the writer's part. We also see this one part with Jefferson, Black Lightning. We see how he's continuing to have these troubles regarding his powers with his PTSD. We see Plasmus ends up getting this control thing knocked off of him, when we find out his name is Otto and stuff, and how he was tricked into basically getting transformed. And we see him actually start to work with them, because he seems to be a good kid. But then that farmer shoots him, and it's like, I can't blame the farmer, because he didn't know. He was just an ordinary guy trying to take down the monster. And I don't even think Jefferson is like, I mean, he's definitely upset by it, but I don't think that it's... I don't think he blames the farmer either. I don't think he's like... I think he'll understand. But we did see that Jefferson did seem to unlock his powers, at least temporarily. So that's good to see. Meanwhile, they seemed at first to have captured Vertigo and everyone, but they ended up escaping using boom tubes and stuff. The boom tubes were also used to take away the metahumans, the metahuman teenagers. Well, yeah, the metahuman teenagers who were being trafficked. And they're definitely starting to really go into something more with that. And I think, like, now that this first arc seems to be kind of wrapping up, I think Brion's going to be a continuous character. And I think they're going to start looking into a different situation. I think that this entire royal family situation is done for at least now. I think they will be coming back to it, especially with the mystery of Tara's disappearance and all still being unsolved. But I think they're going to move on to something else at the same time. Now, there was something else I wanted to talk about. So apparently there's these, like, goggle things or something that were right at the beginning. Let me check that real quick again. It was right at the beginning of the episode. Yeah. I think it's supposed to be pronounced good, or maybe even just good. These, like, virtual reality-looking goggles. They look like they allow you to see the world around you. Everything like that is the same. But you have, like, news, you have entertainment, you have shopping. You can watch videos like this Stargirl series where she's interviewing people. Let me see what else is on here. You have sports, my photos, and music, so you can save stuff to it. There's the time and the weather and all. I'm trying to see what else is on here. Hello, Megan is on there. There's some dice. I assume that's like some kind of gambling show, maybe? Or maybe even some kind of program. The G. Gordon Godfrey show, that's fun. There seems to be various social apps. And I like how the good goggles, the logo there, looks like the Warner Brothers logo. That's fun. But yeah, we see that Gar has become a movie star, a celebrity in his own right, and we see how he apparently has gotten together with that princess, who was in Season 2, I believe. Now, Wally, Kid Flash, he had, there was this one episode, I think Vertigo was the main villain of it, but Kid Flash is, like, tasked with transporting, I think it's a heart, for a heart transplant, from one hospital to another, like, all the way across country or something, a state or country. And obviously, not many others could do it. Only a speedster could, and he's tasked with doing it. And all these villains are like trying to stop him on his way. And we find out that Count Vertigo is trying to take this princess's country. But when he gets there, we find out that Kid Flash had already delivered everything. Everything's good. And the princess has Vertigo arrested and stuff. And Gar mentioned that he met her, because Gar is now dating her. He mentioned that he met her at a friend's funeral, referencing Wally, because Wally was lost to the Speed Force at the end of Season 2. So, I mean, technically, he could probably still be alive, but to their knowledge, from their point of view, he is dead, especially it's been years now. So, yeah, it's like, as of now, at least, he's gone. But we see that there is some continuity with that, of course. I mean, of course there's going to be. That was a big event. But we're also seeing how these other characters who are involved with that are moving on, and even other things that you didn't think would necessarily return. We didn't think this princess would return, but it's kind of cool that she has. So yeah, this entire thing where Stargirl's interviewing him and all, it's this fun little segment. He uses it to talk about metahuman trafficking, which again is the big thing, the big overarching plot line. And we've already seen that Gar is very much invested in that. He is very much invested in this entire thing, him being who he is. Now, his powers and everything came from a blood transfusion from Megan and all, but still. It's really cool to see that continue on, and I hope they do more of that. Like these fun little bumpers that, with Gar talking about all of this in different ways like that, that would be fun. It would be a fun little way to deliver those parts. So we'll see where that goes. But either way, I think I've talked long enough about this episode, so tell me in the comments below what you thought. What did you think about the way that this arc seems to have been wrapped up in this episode? I don't know for sure. There might be another episode or two with this arc, but we'll have to see. Tell me your thoughts on all of that and more in the comments below, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
And though you've come through many obstacles,